Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the Veterinary Alumni Association of Peradeniya for giving me this opportunity to present an overview of the 5-year veterinary undergraduate curriculum, which we commonly refer to as the 2020 curriculum. For those who don't know me, my name is Chanaka Rabel, and I'm a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine and Animal Science. Currently, I'm the chairperson of the Veterinary Medical Education Unit, and at the time of the curriculum revision, I was the deputy chairperson of the Curriculum Revision and Implementation Committee, and that's what qualifies me to give this presentation to you today. So without further ado, we all know that the curriculum is critical to producing a veterinary graduate, producing a high quality, competent veterinary graduate. That is true not only for the veterinary degree program, but basically any degree program, the curriculum is really critical. And that is why the curriculum needs to be up to date, and it needs to be revised and optimized to change, to suit the dynamic nature of that particular profession. So the major curriculum revisions took place in 1992 and the year 2000 prior to this particular curriculum revision. And in year 2010, although the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine prepared a curriculum revision, it did not get approved at the UGC for various, 101 reasons. So when we started this revision in 2015, 15 years have elapsed since the last curriculum revision, which was in year 2000. So we were all aware that a revision was badly needed. And it was during such a period of time that we stumbled upon this veterinary education twinning program mediated by the OIE, or the World Organization for Animal Health. So the basic objective of this program was to assist OIE member countries such as Sri Lanka to deliver high quality veterinary services through quality veterinary education. So basically there are two components to this twinning program. So there was a beneficiary such as Sri Lanka, a vet school from a developing country, and then of course there was a parent, a vet school, which happened to be Massey University of New Zealand in our case, which is essentially a very well recognized accredited vet school. So to kick off things officially, an MOU was signed back in year 2014 between the New Zealand team and the Sri Lankan team. So this is the New Zealand team, Massey University, the Sri Lankan team, the vice chancellor at the time, and the dean of the faculty at the time. So one of the very first steps in commencing this curriculum revision was conducting of a gap analysis. So basically a gap analysis is analysis you do to identify or to understand the gap between the current state, which was the state in 2015, versus the desired future or ideal state where you want to go. So this gap analysis was done through a stakeholder survey and obviously a self-evaluation. And this gap analysis revealed that the curriculum at the time, the four-year curriculum at the time was not aligned with globally accepted standards in veterinary education. It was theory heavy. It gave limited time for students to learn clinical skills, animal husbandry related skills, problem solving skills, and professional skills. In addition, it was also inadequately recognized internationally. So having identified these gaps, the next step was obviously to bridge the gap. And we did that by following already published guidelines both international and national level. For example, the veterinary education core curriculum published by the OIE itself, and then we also refer to guidelines published by the Australasian Veterinary Boards Council, also those published by the Royal Veterinary College London and the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, and then also some local guidelines, Sri Lankan qualification framework, and then subject benchmark statements again published by the UGC. And also we sought help from veterinary expert veterinary educationists from the world over. These two gentlemen happen to be from the Massey University. This lady happened to be from UC Davis, California, and this is alumni from our faculty itself, Professor Iona Fletcher. I'm sure most of you know her from Royal College of London, RVC, Royal Veterinary College London. So having referred to all these documents and sought advice and help from all these veterinary educationists, we bridged the gap and the 2020 curriculum was born. So I showed these deficiencies earlier identified by the gap analysis. I'll very briefly go through how each of these were addressed or how each of these gaps were bridged. So this was basically, aligning with the globally accepted standards, was, basically referring to all the publications that were already available, such as the veterinary education co-curriculum and the other documents that I showed earlier. And then another significant observation was this theory heaviness and limited opportunities for students to learn clinical skills, and especially related to animal husbandry. So the 4-year curriculum at the time, which all of us learned, had this basic structure, as you will recall. First year was completely filled with preclinical subjects such as anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. Second year was paraclinical subjects, which was basically pathology, parasitology, microbiology, so on. And then the third year, was animal sciences and public health, etc. And the final year is when the students learn both the theory as well as the practical aspects of clinical sciences. But in the new curriculum, to counter these deficiencies, so preclinical subjects and paraclinical subjects were truncated a little bit, especially the theory components, and sometimes the practical components also, where the experts felt were taught too much. And then to give more clinical exposure, hands-on exposure. um, Remember, during the previous curriculum, the old curriculum, clinicals basically started during the final year, 4th year. But in the new curriculum, animal handling and exposure to animals, as well as clinical lectures, both farm animal and pet animal, commenced as early as semester 1. So that way students get exposed to clinical sciences and improving their skills right from the beginning. And in addition to all of that, a 5th year was introduced, where it was basically an year of clinical instruction, which was lecture free. So all paraclinical, preclinical, clinical lectures would be concluded by the end of the 4th year. And in addition to all this, externships were also introduced, where students would go out of campus locations for extra clinical training, and Anil sir, our dean, will be talking about that later in great detail. So that's how these 3 deficiencies were countered or tackled. And then another major deficiency identified was that the existing 4-year curriculum at the time did not give sufficient time for students to learn problem solving skills and to develop professional skills. So to counter that, a new two new courses were introduced. One was named Professional Studies, and the other one was named Integrated Veterinary Sciences, which took an approach of problem-based learning. So the deficiency was limited time to learn problem-solving skills. So a course spanning the entire first 4 years or 8 semesters was introduced based on problem solve learning entirely. So this course would help counter these two courses would help counter these two particular deficiencies. And then last but not least, inadequately recognized internationally. That was another deficiency identified by the analysis. So we have um, develop this new curriculum in such a way that it follows the accreditation, that it complies with the accreditation standards published by the Australasian Veterinary Boards Council. And our objective is to get accreditation of the AVBC, and we are working towards that as we speak. So to get a little bit more technical than I previously talked about, so these are some lecture and practical numbers of preclinical, paraclinical sciences, animal sciences, public health, etc. Of the old curriculum. So basically this says that in the old curriculum, preclinical courses, the lecture component was 350 hours, 251 for paraclinical sciences, and 180 hours for animal sciences, etc. And the practical component. But with the new curriculum, remember one of the observation was theory heavy, right? So theory component was cut down. See, theory component went down, practical component increased. But in certain cases, like paraclinical sciences, both the theory and the practical hours were cut down. Animal sciences, lecture hours went down, practical hours improved. Public health and related courses, both lecture and practical hours were cut down. And remember, the observation was less opportunity for students to learn clinical sciences, clinical skills. So although the theory lecture hours were cut down for both companion and farm animal related sciences courses, the theory lecture hours were cut down. However, the practical hours were almost doubled in these two courses, streams of courses. And then the introduction of the two new courses, professional studies, non-existent in the old curriculum, 0 hours, and then integrated veterinary sciences, non-existent in the previous curriculum, but 240 hours altogether. So those would help students improve their problem solving skills and professional skills. That was the idea behind those two courses. So this is the curriculum blueprint in one slide. So these show the 10 semesters, and this shows the number of credits. So basically, approximately 15 credits times 10 is the entire curriculum, right? Including English, which is a non-GPA course, but it's essential given the Sri Lankan circumstances. So these are those preclinical subjects that I talked about: anatomy and physiology, biochemistry, etc. The paraclinical subjects: pathology, microbiology, parasitology, etc. Pharmacology and public health. And then the animal sciences and livestock health and production. So goes all the way from semester 1 through semester 10, and that is the lecture-free clinical instruction, the externship, the companion and wild animal courses. This is the integrated veterinary sciences that I talked about, which takes the problem-based learning approach, which spans through 8 semesters, and then of course professional studies right here. So in summary, the new curriculum addresses the deficiencies revealed by the gap analysis, aligns day one competencies with recommendations of the OIE, Australasian Veterinary Boards Council, and the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons recommendations, aligns graduate profile with the UGC subject benchmark statements and Sri Lanka qualification framework guidelines, complies with accreditation standards published by the AVBC and RCVCS, reviewed by world-renowned veterinary educationists, has the potential to produce veterinarians who are able to better serve the needs of Sri Lanka. And upon accreditation by the AVBC, will bring fame to the University of Peradeniya, the UGC, and the country as a whole. I would like to acknowledge these individuals who played critical roles in the development of the curriculum. One is Professor Abhay Gunawardena, former dean and former vice chancellor, and then Professor Nayana Vijayawardena, who was the chairperson of the curriculum revision committee, all academic staff who gave their fullest support, and certain non-academic staff members who also played a role in this, and of course the vet school of the Massey University for parenting us. Especially, I want to mention two names: project leader Dr. Lachlan McIntyre and Professor Tim Parkinson, among others, and then experts in veterinary education from University of California, Davis, and Royal Veterinary College, London. And then the Vice Chancellor at the time, Professor Upul B. Disanayaka, the Deputy Vice Chancellor at the time, Professor Vijay Veera, and then the UGC Chairman who helped us immensely, Professor Mohan De Silva. And with that, I conclude this brief presentation, and I invite you to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank the Veterinary Alumni Association of Peradeniya, its executive committee, chaired by Dr. Oswin Pereira,